should do you think about the outro? Okay. No plan for me is to make it right now. Hello.
Hello everyone, how are you? Hi Chase.
Hello.
Okay, good. So today I'm going to teach Chase how to play against the closed Sicilian, and we will take it, you know, baby steps. The Sicilian close starts after e4, c5, and white plays knight to c3. This variation is marked by the absence of white playing this pawn to d4, and white plays like a King's Indian formation with an extra move. The play is a bit slower, and the central pawn formations tend to be locked, and hence, hence the name Closed Sicilian. World champion Boris Spassky success with this line around the 1970s and 80s. It made it very popular. This line appeals to players of white who prefer a slower build-up for an attack. Interestingly, white avoids playing d4, therefore he retains his d pawn later on in the center. Make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so now white's second move, this move knight c3, is flexible, and there's quite possibilities for transformations, or what you call transpositions, like changing into a different opening. He could actually play d4 later on and change into one of the main lines. If he wants to, exactly. Yeah. And this can be tricky. So black at this moment doesn't know where his opponent is trying to go.
Does he play d6?
Well, the move I'm going to recommend is g6. Okay. Because this will fit with your repertoire, right?
Yeah.
With the dragon repertoire. So
what if they play d4 after g6?
After g6?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of doesn't really make sense, right?
I know.
Because, I mean, I've seen Brian, I think, if you play d4 here, you could even play bishop g7.
Okay.
I could argue that, let's say, after something like this, you can play
queen a5.
Queen a5, yeah. And it's going to collect the c pawn anyway. So maybe not the best, right? So the thing with before he plays whatever he plays, his possibilities actually quite a lot. He could play on the next move. He could play f4. He could play also.
That's the line I hate the most.
Yeah, he could play bishop c4. He could play the bishop d5. Or he could play g3.
They're not like against the f4 line.
Yes, exactly. And white can still play knight f3 if he wants, or knight g2. So there's quite a lot of flexibility. That's why g6 is very flexible. Because he doesn't know where he wants to put his knight and so on. But g6, he knows, okay, at least if I've got the pawn on c5, it means that my bishop is not going to be able to go out this way, right? So what he's doing is he knows for certain that his bishop is going to go this way, so he does it. So
It's
now,
kind of forcing him to play that almost.
yes, yes.
So he
So
doesn't have to get worried about where to put his bishop.
exactly. So here the main continuation is g3, but of course there's other things that white can do here. You could play knight ge2, at which point, if you've played it the way we are playing now, he wants to push d4, so you can go knight c6, and if he goes d4, you go pawn takes, knight takes d4, and here you continue with bishop g7, and you've got this position from the accelerated dragon.
Mm-hmm.
You could play knight f3 in this position, and here you just go bishop g7, and here what you're trying to avoid is you're trying to avoid the Rosolimo, like playing knight c6 here and bishop b5, which is a different opening.
I don't even know about
Yeah, yeah. You just need to know it. It's not that it's particularly dangerous. You do need to know. So if he goes knight f3 here, because knight ge2 was blocking the bishop, knight f3 is not blocking the bishop. So if he goes knight f3 here, you go bishop g7, and now
what if it is e5?
and e5 is a weakness. If he goes e5 now, you just go knight c6, and you're eventually going to collect this pawn. You could defend it. I mean, it's not. But if he defends it with king e2, for instance, it's blocking the bishop on f1.
Unless he plays g2, g3, and that was his plan all along.
Yes, but okay. So let's say e5, knight c6. Let's say it's supposed to play queen e2, right? Now he's got another problem. This knight can land on
Five,
d4
and then
in some cases, right?
and then he can toss the position open.
Yeah. But anyway, after knight c6, black could play simply d6, dissolve this pawn. But black is not in trouble here. So
Black
e5,
was in good shape.
yeah, knight,
Queen to c7 would just get the pawn off.
yes, I was worried about knight b5 or knight d5, but black is
If,
not, you would not be in a hurry to get the
if
pawn.
knight to d5, you can just play queen to c6.
Yes, but the position of the knight is not really great, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the pawn would be weak
In fact,
regardless.
you can play b5 to stop him from being there, and
Yeah,
then you don't have to worry. And then you can play queen to c7 there. Then white's position just crumbles.
yeah. So bishop g7.
He has to like move his knight to a3 just to get out the back rank,
Right.
and just to, and then you have to move your queen back, and that was just a waste of a move.
Yes, so queen e2 would definitely be wrong. So bishop g7, and now if he goes d4, you take on d4, knight takes on d4. Now,
Queen to e6.
no, you play knight c6 again. So if he takes, you take with the b pawn, and you've got a very good, again, accelerated a dragon position, which is favorable for black. So here, knight f3, knight ge2 are all good. And you could go d4 after you play g6, of course. And we looked at this a little bit earlier. And here, you take king takes d4,
Right.
and now we go knight f6. The point is that,
e5.
yes, if e5, you go knight c6, and now he has to play queen e3.
He still has to move his knight back.
Yeah, and now knight g4. And the
Queen
pawn,
f4.
well, the pawn on e4, right?
Oh, what are we supposed
Let's say it goes queen e2. Then go d6 here.
to actually, we should take on d6.
Yeah, but every time he's taking black, black is like jumping into the game, right?
So you don't want to trade. You want
Yeah,
black to be in a dump position.
yeah. And he's attacking the knight. The reason why you don't jump and take here is because I think after f4, After f4, the knight is trapped.
No, knight to g4.
You can't. That's why the bishop is not protecting on g4 right now. So that's why here, after king e2, which is quite tricky, you play d6. And if he takes, I think you just take. And most of black pieces are jumping into the game. The queen is blocking the bishop.
And the queen might get pinned if black has enough time.
Exactly.
It's a waste of a move.
Yeah. So g3 after e4, c5, and yeah, g3, knight c3, sorry, g6, g3. I think is the move you really need to be prepared for. And after bishop g7, bishop g2, knight c6. Now this is always an idea in the lines when white doesn't play d4.
Okay.
You basically clamp on this weak square. In the Sicilian, if white doesn't play d4, you take control of d4 as black.
Okay.
So after d3, d6, here white has the choice of three main setups, and they are knight ge2. That's the first setup.
I heard you. What's next? I think you were on the wrong page.
It's okay. So there's knight ge2, and then there is after knight ge2, he wants to castle, right? That's the first setup that he's going for. The other setup that he has is to play bishop e3 here, followed by queen d2 with the idea of castling long and launching an immediate attack against the black king. And then the last setup is to play f4 here, right? The point is that after f4, he wants to follow with his knight to f3, and he wants to castle first. All right. So let's first start with the first plan, knight ge2. Here, we play knight f6, and if he castles, here's that idea. Maybe he could play h3 here.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if he goes h3, you castle. His idea is to play bishop e3. That's why he played h3. So you can play knight g4.
And you can't just box him in his own king.
Correct, yeah. So here your idea becomes to play e5. You are clamping on this d4 square because now you could push d4. So you stop it. And if he castles, now you take control of this square with knight d4. And after king h2.
I recommend if you're gonna take that d4, take with your bishop. I always watch out with that tactic because if you take with your knight on e7, you forked. I mean actual fork. Okay, not actually.
So after king h2, knight h5, and here knight d5, bishop e6, and after c3, don't go backwards, take on e2, and it's a fairly level game, right? White can claim an advantage and black really can claim an advantage. So h3 is an idea. So going back here, after going back into the knight ge2 line, knight f6, castles, and here you castle also. And now it goes h3. h3 is played to develop the bishop on e3. White's plan is to throw a pawn stop on the king side with f4 and g4, followed by f5 and g5. From e2 here, the knight can go to g3. It can also go to f4 to support the attack. If instead of if instead here on move number 8, let's say, if you go f4 immediately, what black does is he plays bishop g4 with the idea knight d4.
And you, well, wait, knight to g4, the knight on c3 is also guarding.
No, of course. But if you're trying to attack and black can put a lot of exchanges, your attack is not going to go on anywhere, right? So after h3, black goes knight e8, which seems like a contrary to general principles, moving backwards, right?
The reason I know it's not a bad move because it showed a green space, that means it's not bad.
Yeah. So basically, knight e8 opens up obviously for the bishop, and you're going to reposition your knight to a better square.
Like h3, h6 or something. If you're actually playing the real King's Indian.
Oh, you mean as black play h6?
Like knight, get your knight to h6 if you're playing the King's Indian.
Oh, okay, no. So
and if you know it well.
Knight e8 is a multi-purpose move, right?
You can do many things with it.
Yes, and the reason why it's a multi-purpose move is black is ready to meet f4. Yeah? With the move f5. So the knight leaves f6 so that you can play this f5 move, which would stop white's kingside attack.
And which will just make white's position like toast, chicken, nuts.
The other thing is that now...
It will stop white's attack.
It will stop white's attack. If white plays, let's say, instead of f4, let's say if he plays bishop e3, right? Now black can meet this move with knight d4, which stops white from playing d4.
And it's actually going to be a forced trade.
Yes, and it prepares a central square. I mean,
almost a
white doesn't want to take on d4 with his bishop.
Or knight.
Yeah, it's not really nice.
And if you play knight f4, you're just going to play e5.
Yeah, so this knight...
So you either have to play knight c8 or trade.
Yeah.
Otherwise, black would just make your position even worse, whereby e5.
Yeah, so knight e8 is a very strong idea. And here...
And white's position is not great.
Yeah. And if the main move here after knight e8 is definitely bishop e3. But if we go back and to look at this idea of playing f4 here and dig a bit deeper, if he goes f4, we go f5, right? Understood? Mm-hmm. f4, f5, let's say bishop e3, and now we have this knight d4 idea. And here rook b1 with the idea of playing b4. But then black counters this with because b4 would undermine d4, right? Black counters this with a5.
Okay.
And using strategy of containment,
you can probably play a4 because if plays d4, you can take on to something.
Yes, and it's tough for white here to come up with a plan because a reasonable one at least. If a4, then what you do is you go knight c7.
I like comfortable positions.
Yes. And if he takes on f5, here you take with the pawn. Okay. The pawn.
Not a knight.
Yeah. The pawn restricts these squares e4 and g4, so it's a much more useful move. If he goes king h2, you go rook b8. Now you see that your pieces, you're first of all getting the rook out of this diagonal, but also you can play b5 here. Okay. So rook b8, knight to g1. This knight was poorly placed. And now bishop d7.
Why don't we play knight f3?
Yes, knight f3. You can really stop it. So knight here, bishop c6.
Knight h9.
If he takes, this is going to end up losing material, so he can't actually take on d4. Queen d2 and queen d7, and in this position, I think black stands well. And there was a game, I think, Smirin and Usman, in which this position was reached. It's worth analyzing that game. I'll put it in the notes so that people can access it. But going back, bishop e3 is the main idea, and here black missed this with knight d4. And after knight d4, queen d2. This move does not make sense on some level.
It does. What if black plays f5? If you don't play queen to d2, what if f5? f5 is coming in the knight, and if you take with your e pawn, you might take with the knight.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm thinking of. I need to check this. Maybe. Okay, queen d2, the reason why I'm worried about it.
It's not a main line.
It is. Bishop e3 is, I think, the main idea. So queen d2. Why I don't know why I didn't check this move. This is what I'm thinking right now.
Okay, that's weak.
Well, if he takes here, the idea is to play check on f3. So
okay, but why? What if bishop takes then?
Bishop takes what? E.
Yeah.
Then he takes.
Then take on h3.
Take on h3. Take here.
Take with your knight.
Okay, I guess you could argue that black lost a central pawn and white lost a wing pawn.
So I am arguing hard.
Who's better here?
I'll recommend white.
Yeah, white is a bit better. Alright, so it's not something to worry about, but it's something you must see at least, before jumping into the variation like this. Queen d2, rook b8, f4, sorry. And here again, the same idea, f5. So that's why you put your knight on e8 to be able to meet this f4 idea with f5. And now knight d1. Here white retreats his knight so that he can play c3, forcing black's much better placed knight to give up its outpost on d4. So here b5 and now c3.
I'm sorry, I'm being quiet. I just want to concentrate on the position.
That's okay. Here you take on e2, don't go backwards. And after queen takes e2, now black continues his undermining of the diagonal here, because this is the weak diagonal that he wants to influence.
He wants it.
Exactly. And I think black has got a promising position. He's a fianchetted bishop over here on g7.
I like it when I don't move it out of the square.
Yeah, and aided by the pawns also, obviously.
Black is better.
It's putting a lot of pressure on the dark space.
You can't take on b4.
Yeah, and this pawn here on f5 is also putting pressure on e4. Huh? Making it difficult for white to play d4.
I don't think it matters too much, because if he takes on f5, you might just have an open diagonal.
Yes. You mean for
white?
White. But then you see, this move is very tricky. If you take here, he takes with the g pawn, right? He moves his king to
what if
h8?
Bishop to b7 after that, actually?
Yes, he's going to counter. There's a lot of weaknesses also on the white king side. So it's not a...
So you want to exploit the weaknesses and then boom on b7, boom on g2, boom on h2, boom on f2.
Yeah.
Boom.
So after d6, The second line we looked at, or we are considering, is bishop e3. And here you played the move knight to f6. Okay?
Threatening knight to b4. G4.
Yeah, knight g4 is a move, absolutely. So that's why
trying to box out the bishop.
Yes, that's why they play h3 here. And you castle, and now queen d2. So the whole idea behind this is to storm white on the king side, right? Then he is preparing to play bishop h6, removing this defender. And at the right moment, play long castling. The idea here is a direct attack. In fact, most young people that you meet play this with the idea of a direct attack against the king. If instead, here, instead of going queen d2, let's say he went.
What if he plays queen e2?
We'll look at that. Then let's focus. So, if f4 here, we go knight d4, right? And I think this is a fairly reasonable way of dealing with f4. If he goes knight ge2, what you do here is you then continue knight e8, which is also the idea. Now you can play f5, and after queen g2, you go f5, and this is transpositioning to the earlier line which we looked at after short castling.
Why not long castling? Threatening a king side attack.
Yeah, but I think your pieces are not so well placed. If he's played f5 and you long castle, you're not going to be able to exchange this dark squared bishop for this bishop.
What if you play g4, like put every piece, like almost every piece guarding the f4 pawn, then play g4. And except the rook guarding the g4 pawn.
Yeah, but all that takes preparation, and your opponent is not waiting for you to
do blah blah blah.
Yeah,
he's just gonna play h5 and
yeah. So I think, okay, so bishop e3. So queen d2, I think here is a move you need to deal with immediately, and the way you do that is you play knight to d4. This is how you react to queen d2. It's a thematic move, this knight d4. It means it occurs a lot in the closed Sicilian. What happens is that black takes over the center and stops white from playing bishop h6, right? So you notice that if you play bishop h6 here now, you will take on h6, and if queen takes on h6, you will take on c2 with check. Do you see it? Did you see what I said? If you play bishop h6, black will take, queen takes, and knight c2 check, right?
Why would you play bishop h6 this early?
That's the idea, though, that he wants to. So knight d4 prevents him from playing bishop h6, right?
Nobody would want to play bishop h6 in that position. Knight takes c2 doesn't work that well.
So he plays knight d1. Again, he doesn't want to play a move like
knight e2.
Knight e2, exactly. And okay, so knight d1, and here continue with e5. So e5 is a central move to black strategy. The move e5, right?
Knight to d1 is threatening c3.
Yes, exactly. he wants to play c3. So e5. So the idea behind playing c3 is what? What is his ultimate goal? He wants to play d4, right? So this
and he wants to kick the knight
away. But now, with the pawn on e5, if he plays c3, he's not going to be able to play d4
right away.
Exactly. That's the whole point behind e5.
You need to get some rooks there.
Yes, and this move e5 also anticipates the exchange of this dark squared bishop, right?
Like expects?
Yeah.
So what if white actually doesn't take it until very late in the game?
It's okay still. The bishop is okay as a defensive piece. But the reason is that if you exchange the dark squared bishop now, it's a bad bishop anyway.
So you might as well get some activity and make some bad bishops in his king.
Yes. So
there's no point of trading.
So yeah, it makes it useless for white to trade.
That bishop is better, so you might as well use it for some attacking first, then trade the piece off.
So you go c3
so that first. Black's position will get even worse, like down 2 queens or 1.
Yeah. So c3.
Okay, knight that's c6. A bit crazy.
Okay, let's look at the position. Okay. Knight c6. And now knight e2.
White wants to castle.
Yeah, I think black gets a very good position after bishop. Doesn't have to take, but it's fine with the exchange.
I normally don't take.
Yeah.
I just developed to just waste white's time.
Correct. Yeah. So after knight e2.
In fact, I'll play queen h5.
It goes e6. Right? Black here, he protects c5. That's the whole idea behind b6. And what he wants to do is he wants to play this thematic idea. Right? So you needed c5 to be very strong. And he stands well. For example, let's say you go f4 here, you can play d5. Right?
Yep.
And after, let's say e5, you could play knight takes e5. And after e takes d5, knight takes d5. And now
Black's position very neat.
Yeah. This is
but just need to play bishop to b7. Because don't forget about that bishop trying to lock on your rook.
Yeah, I mean
that bishop is so sticky.
True. If he goes here, what you do is you take first, check, and you can't take here because of this check.
Check, almost mate.
Almost mate. But he's supposed to take the queen with the queen, right?
And then black's position is just
exactly. So this b6 idea is very strong. He wants to play d5. Okay. So after b6, I think it's quite a decent position, and black has got good plans here. So we're going to look at the last idea,
okay,
which is f4, right?
Okay.
What's f4?
Hope you guys are enjoying the video.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. So here the other idea is f4. And here knight f6. Once again, you have control of d4. And here after you play knight f6, they normally follow with knight to f3. Now they are trying to take control of d4. So what you do here is you play this very good move, bishop g4. Black's plan is to advance his queenside pawns, right?
To attack the knight.
Yeah, he wants to advance the queenside pawns.
And then advance the kingside pawns
Yeah.
If he doesn't want a castle.
Yeah, and he wants to establish control of the square d4.
I like castling late. Very late.
To this end, he eliminates a white's knight on f3 and he increases his power of the bishop on g7.
Yes.
By exchanging his only passive piece, which is the light squared bishop. So let's say after castles, okay, castles, and now he goes h3, bishop takes, queen f3, and rook b8. So it just removes the rook from this diagonal, right? And bishop e3.
Knight to d4 is interesting.
Yeah, but he's not hurrying with it, right? First he goes knight d7.
It's almost like a force you have to take almost.
Yeah. Here playing b5 would be a mistake.
Wow. Whoa.
Do you see why?
Why don't you play a6 to double check that pawn? Because what if a4?
No, but what is the reason why this is a blunder?
e5.
E5, exactly. And the knight is hanging.
Oh no.
But if you look in this variation, so it starts with knight d7, right?
Next summer usually you can just play knight d4. I don't know.
Yeah, but he wants to play in such a way that he doesn't block his own bishop from in the diagonal. So he goes knight d7.
You want to just get that knight and take the b2 pawn, run away very fast.
So white stops b5 with a4, and here black just simply prepares it with a6.
I knew you're gonna need to prepare that. Man.
So he goes g4, and now knight to b4, right?
Yay! Finally, my move can come in.
Exactly, but he prepared it very nicely. Without a passive bishop on c8, black doesn't fear f5, right?
Yeah.
And if white plays f5, these dark squares will bother him. Black is very strong in those dark squares. In the meantime, his queenside play is getting underway.
Yeah.
So queen f2, protecting c2. And now black just continues with b5. And after take on b5, take on b5. Black's plan is to play, let's say, b4.
Why not e5?
He wants to play b4. Okay. And he wants to put pressure on white's queen side. Meanwhile, white has difficulties
preparing for f5.
Oh, just making progress. Let's say, for instance, he goes f5 here. And you go b4, right? He goes knight d5. And here you just go knight f6. And reducing the number of pieces that are being used to attack.
And reducing white pieces that are just
yes, I mean e6 would be a mistake here because of f6.
Huh?
So you don't want that.
Why would you play e?
I'm just saying, so you know, knight f6, or some people who don't know, right?
Okay.
So knight takes on f6 with check, and bishop f6, and g5. Just go bishop e5, and you can see that here.
Black is.
Yeah, black always has squares.
Black.
And if c3.
Knight to b6.
There's actually this move which is very interesting.
I know what that move does.
Bishop g3.
That's just nasty.
Right?
You can't even take because it's knight to e2. Oh my gosh. That is not even cool at the rate. And if you play queen to b2, you just get walked on b3.
Yeah, so this would be a blunder, right? To play c3 here. The much more stronger move maybe is king h1, but even here.
Yeah, white still got some knight needs.
Yeah, he can play knight here. He's attacking d2, he's suppressing c3.
and that outpost will be for the knight, and there's an outpost for the bishop on a3.
Exactly, you can play now rook a8.
I don't know where I bought that from.
And black has a promising plan on the queen side.
This is gonna be a never-ending win for black almost.
Yeah, and white's attack here is quite.
You can't even play c3 because pawn takes, knight takes, instead of rook a2.
Yeah. So all these moves are
and then there's this covered attacks and everywhere.
Yeah.
And then that's just black is completely winning.
Yeah. And here
no doubt.
There's this attack, but it's completely.
The minor piece is actually overwhelming the two rooks.
Yeah. So here you would just take.
Probably the queen also.
Take and then play rook e8.
The minor piece is beating the whole army.
You plan to play rook e6.
That's two rooks without a queen. The queen's not doing too much, I guess. But it's attacking here, which is actually a good one. Black's pieces, even though white's pieces has lots of squares to checkmate, that piece is going down like dang, would you give me a chance?
Okay, so you see now that
black is just winning.
Yeah, black can handle this opening fairly well, and yeah, so I don't know if there's any particular position that we didn't cover, but a summary here of this line is that black has very effective counter punches to all of white's plans. If white plays f4, black f4 and knight f3, black plays bishop g4, and he trades the bishop. Remember in that line where we looked at just now. And I mean, any aggressive plan that we looked at that white has, black could find a counter. So it's a very manageable opening from black's point of view. And if you want to know more about this line, the greatest contributors to this opening were Vasily Smyslov, so you can find some of his games. They're very good. I'll try and see if I can collect some. Okay. And Boris Spassky was also another world champion. And they contributed a lot to the King's Indian attack. No, to the Closed Sicilian. I'm mistaking a bit. Anyway, I hope this was enjoyable. And I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe, and follow him on Twitch. What's your Twitch? Yes, our Twitch is ACL Chess. ACL Chess. That's the Twitch. Thank you so much. Thanks.